Welcome. Today I'm going to show you guys how to play Tumble by Blue Orange Games. Now this is a very dexterous game for sure. It's a very easy, simple game. So let's talk about how it plays. So first of all, every player, depending on how many people are playing obviously, is going to get a ton of these cards, which are sort of like roundish almost, but with nice little fine edges here. You're going to deal these cards out evenly, and there's over 100 of these cards. So even though that this doesn't look like 100, there's 100 in total. So, or a little bit more than 100, but that's a lot of cards. So if you're playing with two people, each player is going to have like 50 cards. So obviously the more the merrier, less cards for you to have to deal with. So what you're going to do is after everyone's been dealt their cards evenly, the player who is going, when it's their turn, they're going to have this deck of cards. They're not going to know what cards they have. They're not allowed to look at it because you're going to be dealt these face down. Now, you're not allowed to look at these cards at any given time until it's time to play them. So on your turn, you have the choice to take one, and you're still not allowed to look at it, 1, 2, up to 3 cards from the deck, from your personal deck, into your hand. You have the option of doing 1, 2, and 3. You can do 1, you can do 2, you can do 3. But once you take these, you have 2 choices. You either play them, or you decide not to play them, and if that's the case, or simply just can't play them, there's some cards that can't really be played at certain times. If you can't play any of these, or decide you don't want to play any of these cards, you're going to get penalized. You're going to get to end up keeping the cards, and the player who has the fewest of these cards, the fewest of these, is going to be the winner. So you don't want to keep a lot of these cards, for sure. But you also don't want to cause the tree here to tumble. You don't want these cards that you're going to be putting on this tree here to fall off. Because if they fall off during your turn, then all of the cards, even if it wasn't one of the ones you placed, all the cards that fell, you then get penalized with. They go into a separate little pile in front of you, and they're going to be deducted, obviously. So you're going to have a lot of cards, and you're probably going to have a lot of cards. So you obviously don't want to do that either. So this is definitely a very dexterous game. Now, it may not look like you can get a ton of cards on here, because a lot of these have to be placed on the edge. It may not look like it, but when I played this by myself, I think I had at one given time, I had like 24 to 30 cards on this tree. So it is possible to get a lot of cards on this tree. Okay, so after you take the cards that you decide on, then you're able to look at them. Okay, so here we have the cards that I took. And then I can play, each of these cards as well. Now, at any time during my turn, if I decide I don't want to play them, obviously I'm going to get deducted. So maybe I don't want to play the leopard or something like that. Well, that's going to get deducted. So that's the thing. You don't know what you're going to draw, of course. And there are definitely times when you don't want to play a certain card. Like maybe this one, for instance. Or maybe this one, for instance. So that's something to note. Now, that's basically how you play the game. But what do you do with the cards? Obviously, there's a variety of different cards. What do you do with them once you get them to the tree? Or how do you get them to the tree? Okay, well, let's talk about this. So here we have the bees. The bees card, and there's for future reference, there's even a nice little handy reference card here that tells you what all the various cards do. The flower, the foliage, the monkey, the snake, the toucan. All of those are on here, so you know how to play with them. And then, obviously, the bee, the leopard, the bat, and the chameleon. So there's a nice little handy reference card. But this is what you're going to do. When you put the bees down, you can put them anywhere you want on the tree. But the problem is, bees, when you put bees on a tree, none of the animals can be placed on the bees. So the toucan, the leopard, the chameleon, the snake, none of those can be placed there. The monkey and the bat. Now, I say none of the animals, but there is a way for the chameleon to actually be placed on the bees, depending on what was played last. Okay, so here we have the bees. We place them in the middle. This is the foliage card. The foliage card can be placed anywhere on the tree as well. So hey, let's cover up the bees. Because obviously I can't put the bat or the monkey onto the tree touching the bees. So you can't do that. That's something you cannot do. You can't place it there. And so that's what I mean by certain cards. Sometimes there is no way to place the animal down because there's no place to put it down without it falling off or touching the bees. And so then you would get penalized and have to keep the animal card. So if you can't place it down without it touching the bees, you're out of luck, obviously. So the foliage card and the flower card are the only cards that can be placed on the bees, okay? But the flower card, it has to be placed on the edge here, and this yellow part, which kind of determines ground, if you will, has to be on the outer edge. So you can't just simply place it here or like this. You have to place it like this, for instance. It has to go on the edge like that. And obviously we can put the foliage anywhere we want. Now the monkey is just like the flower, but it also has to be placed on the edge as well. And so let's, for instance, put it here on this side, okay? So it was placed on that side. So we have to make sure we get the outer edges so they're not touching the inside part of the tree. Now the snake, it also has to be placed like the monkey and the flower in that way, but it has to also be placed between two cards. And so for instance, I can place it here between the monkey and the flower, and that is between the two of them. That would be, well, that would work. But if there was no way to place it between two cards like that, like it is now, you would get penalized and have to keep the snake, obviously. Okay, well, what else do we got here? Well, we also have the toucan. The toucan is the hardest because the only way to get the toucan on the tree is to actually throw it a foot away. So you have to like toss it at the tree, and I almost had it on the tree. Almost. So that's a lot harder to get on. And so maybe you may not want to risk playing this because if you throw it and it knocks some down, you're going to get penalized with a whole lot more cards than the toucan. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't at least try once in a while to throw it on there, because that is fun, after all. Then we have the leopard, and the leopard is a cat that likes to pounce. And so, because it likes to pounce, that means you have to slam it onto the tree, which didn't really work out for me. Let's try that again. Ah, see? I slammed it down good. It's got to be slammed down about a foot above. I might not have been exactly a foot above, but it's close enough. Now, the bat is my favorite to place because you actually have to close your eyes before you even grab it, and then you have to drop it about a foot above the tree. But you don't know where the tree is because your eyes are closed. So it's really kind of a guessing game of where it's going to go. You just have to kind of use... Nope, didn't land. So, but it's still the funnest to try to put down. Let's try it again. Close my eyes. Did it make it? Nope, still didn't make it. Let's try it again. Nope, didn't make it. Where'd it go? So that's definitely a hard one to do, for sure. Yeah, it still fell. Wow. I almost always get it. This is the first. Still missed. Wow. So that's how you do the bat. So it's not so easy sometimes. And then the chameleon here. The chameleon is actually going to change depending on what was just played. So if the bat was just played, then the chameleon becomes the bat in a way, and you have to play the chameleon just like you did the bat. Which means if, for instance, there's a nice big bunch of bees on the tree here, and the card that was just played was, I don't know, the foliage or something like that, and you only covered it up partially, and there's still some bees showing, well, and the chameleon's next in line, well, the chameleon is the foliage. And so now you are allowed to cover it up. That is the only way the chameleon can be, unless it's, of course, the flower. If it's the flower, then it would still have to be placed on the edge like this, but it could still be touching the bees if it was the flower. Still, that's the only way an animal can actually be placed on the bees because of that reasoning. So, obviously, that's hard to do. But any animal you put down after the bees are placed down, besides the chameleon, even if it's another bees card, can't be placed on this bee's nest here. And so, you might get penalized for some cards, for sure. So after this, I'm going to do a gameplay video. Okay, we're going to do a gameplay video, a little bit different from the actual game, but I'm going to test myself. You can consider this more of a personal solo variant, even though there is no solo variant with this game. See you guys in the next video.